That's a big question, of course, but I think that there is understanding about one thing, which was expressed by Israel, the United States, regional players like Saudi Arabia and Jordan, Egypt and others, who basically says Hamas rule in Gaza Strip must end. And then we have to start a new phase. The beginning of this new phase, meaning that actually we have to look at starting to build conditions and reality in Gaza Strip that will be hopefully better than the one prevailed in Gaza Strip during the 20 years, almost 20 years of war of Hamas in Gaza Strip. Hamas took over Gaza Strip in 2007, violently eliminating the rule of the Palestinian Authority in Gaza Strip. Now, it's a very complicated and it's a very delicate fabric to sew, because there are different elements that has to be taken into consideration. You need to rehabilitate Gaza Strip. You need to take care of the people, the civilians in Gaza Strip, because large part of Gaza Strip has been severely damaged because of the war, and probably more parts will be more damaged, because we are not yet done with the whole part of the military move. And then you need to take care of the whole issue of making sure that Hamas and Islamic Jihad will not be able to regroup themselves. The meaning of that is that it will take time until you will build a strong, valid sovereignty on the ground, a local power, because Israel basically says we don't want to rule Gaza Strip, we don't want to stay in Gaza Strip. The international community and the United States also say we don't see a reoccupation of Gaza Strip, meaning that in the end of the day, Gaza Strip has to be ruled by Palestinians, but it will take time until you will be able to create or encourage or support, build the scaffolders that a local power in Gaza Strip, people are talking about the Palestinian Authority, will be able to really establish its control on the ground. And this is a period of time where you need to constantly, in parallel to all the civilian aspects, rebuilding Gaza Strip, rehabilitation, and on and on and on, resuming governmental services, this is the time that you need to make sure that Hamas and Islamic Jihad will not be able to regroup themselves, and basically will not be able to build again the infrastructure that once again will enable them to duplicate what we saw up until now in Gaza Strip.
How do you do that?
You did it first. The first element is to crush Hamas and Islamic Jihad major military spine. This is what we see right now. It's a phase that will take and has to run its course. The second one, in the context of the military operation, is to start and cleaning, sort of speaking, if I can use this word, the remains of those military spines, or the remain of these military capacities of Hamas and Islamic Jihad. Remember, we are talking about the issue of hundreds of kilometers of tunnels. We are talking about massive deposit of rockets, ammunition, and so on and so on. Those have to be eliminated to the point that basically Hamas and Islamic Jihad will not be able anymore to once again use that military power in order to basically dictate their radical agenda on the people of the region of Gaza Strip, the neighboring Israeli communities, as well as the region.
What about the Hamas leadership?
Hamas leadership, some of its leadership is scattered. Some is in Qatar, some in Turkey, some in Beirut, in Lebanon. They are still there. One of the interesting things maybe to say about it is that in the Arab world, as part of the growing and enormous criticism on Hamas, there is a lot of anger in the Arab world over Hamas and for what he has done for the people of Gaza, and there is his responsibility for the situation in Gaza. You know, it's interesting, there is some interesting ironic phenomenon. While some circles in the West insist to exempt Hamas from responsibility, the Arab world very clearly, major circles in the Arab world, I would say overwhelmingly, hold Hamas responsible for what happened in Gaza Strip, and they put the blame on Hamas very directly and very bluntly. And as part of this criticism, there is a lot of anger in the Arab world, among other things, over Hamas leadership. The one that actually flee from Gaza or is not in Gaza, they live very comfortably in hotels, in a luxurious hotel in Beirut or in Qatar or in Turkey. They have a lot of private equities and fortune, the leaders of Hamas, it's well published, while the people in Gaza Strip are basically being thrown under the bus. So this is part of this enormous anger in the Arab world over this leadership of Hamas. What will be their fate? Maybe they should live to the rest of their life, whatever the rest of their life is, under a constant fear.